Hey guys, welcome. I hope it helps. And my guest on the show today is Miss Maria de Freitas. Maria, welcome to the show.
Hello, thank you so much for having me. I've been looking forward to this one.
Thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. So for people who don't know, me and Maria actually met about, I think a month and a half ago at at a conference here that was all focused around mental health and so on. And from the first moment we got into a conversation, me and Maria, like 5 minutes later, we're already talking about psychology of mental health and everything. And we're really, really connected. And she's actually the one who introduced me to Alejandro, who was recently on the podcast as well, who's one of her co-founders on Umore. So I wanted to take a different approach today and talk to the other half of the company and see, your potential for the future and what you guys are looking to do, and also talk about your experience and how we even got here. But before we get into everything, Maria, why don't you give all of us some background about yourself, and we'll take it from there.
So of course, where should I start? I will start from the very beginning.
Perfect.
I was born in Brazil, so I'm Brazilian, but I'm half Brazilian, half Portuguese. And I grew up most of my childhood in England. So a real citizen of the world. I then studied a program called Information Management, which is a mixture of statistics and programming. And after my studies, I moved to Denmark, where I've lived for 10 years before I moved to the UAE. So getting through on every single continent. So what did I do in Denmark? I started my journey first working for a place called Saxo Bank. Saxo Bank's actually quite big here in the Middle East, but we used to like to think of it as the original fintech player. They're awesome, amazing technology. They power some of the world's largest banks. Their trading technology is actually on Saxo Tech. And I absolutely adored my time. And that's actually where I was first introduced to marketing. So for those of you who don't know, I have a bachelor's in information management and a master's in finance, to be specific, behavioral finance, which we can talk a little bit more about because I can talk about that for hours. But at Saxo, because of the way the company was structured, there was always an opportunity to try something new. And I was given the chance to run my own little marketing team. Now, Saxo was very early on the digital space, and I learned everything I could learn or start my journey in learning with them about digital marketing. And I was fascinated. And I hadn't realized it. I was already doing growth then. I didn't know it, but it was actually growth, because digital marketing is all about math, and it's all about understanding how you get users to do what you want them to do. So I loved my time at Saxo, and I really got into this marketing thing. So once I was at Saxo, I was like, okay, great. What next? What am I going to do? How am I going to go learn more about this marketing thing that I really love? So in Denmark, I don't know if you're familiar with this, Lego is actually Danish. They are a Danish family that founded the company. So I thought to myself, where can I go learn more? I'm going to go work for one of the world's biggest brands. And within a month, I was working for the Lego Group. It was an incredible experience. We were, at the time, starting the Lego digital transformation, started the first apps at the Lego Group. This was back in 2014. It was, and actually my coffee mug was our kickoff for 2016. It was an absolutely incredible experience. And whilst I was at Lego, this founder who I'd known reaches out to me, and he was like, hey, Maria, you want to come and do growth? And I was like, growth? What is this black magic? I don't know what this is. And he was like, don't worry, you'll figure it out. So I joined a startup in Copenhagen, and that was when I was really introduced to growth, which turns out is growth is a mixture of product, so understanding what you have, data science, so really knowing your numbers, and of course, marketing, because marketing is really about how you talk to consumers, how you position your brand. So if you think of marketing as making things pretty and creating the brand, growth is repackaging that for your product and for your customers in a way that they want it, and then feeding back that loop. So I like to think as growth as marketing 2.0 in the modern world. And that was really where my first introduction. This company was called 23 Video. They've done exceptionally well. They're a video marketing platform, fully bootstrapped. They are now really doing very well because they offer webinars. And at 23, then I was lucky enough to move to, I got headhunted to go join the Leo Innovation Lab. And this is where my mental health medtech story starts. So for those of you who don't know, Leo Innovation Lab was an incubator, accelerator, investor, and venture builder in Copenhagen, founded by Leo Pharma. And Leo Pharma is a very special pharmaceutical company because they're a foundation, which means all profits are reinvested into the business. So we were given the same amount of money that you take to run a clinical trial, and we were allowed to invest, build, buy anything that would improve the lives of people living with chronic skin conditions. And it was such a ride. And so we can talk a little bit more about what we did at the lab. But I was there for nearly 3 years. And it was actually through the lab that Karine, my previous employer, reached out to me and asked if I would come and join them before the Uber acquisition, to come and join them as head of growth. So I then left the lab, moved to the Middle East, and absolutely fell in love with this region and its people and the culture and the identity, and then decided to co-found a startup here. So this is how I am here today.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that story with us. I'll always love listening to how people, where they started and how they got to where they are, and, you know, the various experiences on the way, because it really makes up like why people are doing what they do now or how they got here. So many points to talk about. Listening to you, it's very interesting how you in a short amount of time, you've worked at Lego, you worked at a bank, you worked at Kareem, you worked at MedTech, and now you're in Umore. So you've really gone across multiple industries. So I think that's really cool, because you get exposure to so many different ideas and so many different things. And yes, growth and marketing is the underlying factor, but how do you apply that now to a brand new market, to a brand new product, to a brand new consumer base? So I'm curious, from across those experiences, which one would you say was the most challenging one, and which one did you really learn a lot from?
Oh my gosh, they were all challenging in their own specific way. And every single place I've been, I've taken something from it, because if you work in the tech industry, and if you work in the space, by the way, it's very normal to move from industry to industry, because you apply the same principles. It actually is, it's all based on math and understanding how users interact and how they interact with your product. What was my most challenging? My most challenging was probably Korean. Incredibly fast-paced environment with incredibly smart individuals. I don't think I've ever worked with so many brilliant people in one single place at the same time. And that really, I really hats off, because the founders were able to build a culture of true excellence. And I've never seen not only so many talented individuals together, but so many talented individuals who every single day strive to be better. That the work ethic was incredible. So I would say, because everyone was so excellent, it puts a pressure on you yourself to be even more excellent. So that was, I would say, definitely my most challenging, and with also very ambitious growth targets as well. Where did I learn the most? I would say I learned the most at Saxo Bank, because they threw me into the deep end. And they gave me something I'd never had, and I had to figure it out. And Saxo had a Jack Welch approach of business, which is top 10% up, bottom 10% out. So you either sink or you swim.
Oh wow!
So that I would have said that that was where you have to learn quick, move fast, or you're out. But you know what you get into.
Yeah, for sure. But that's quite a ruthless approach, I must I must say. To have,
but it's not, it's radical candor almost, because you know what you're getting. There is it is no pretense, very clear objectives, and so you know what you're going in, and you do get rewarded for the results. So it is, you are very conscious of the contract that you have.
Yeah, no, I think that's a fair point. At least, you know, if you are in the top 10%, you know where you stand, you know what you're going to get. So, you're in a pretty good spot. So I guess that fuels the motivation. But also on the point that with Kareem, I think that's a very interesting thing but it's so true because everyone speaks about this. If you want to grow the most as a person, surround yourself with people who are either smarter than you, better than you, because you feed off that energy, and that's how you grow, and that's how you get all these new ideas to start tackling new challenges and so on. And on the Kareem part, because I think because you were the head of growth there, and I think sometimes there can be a misconception between sales and customer growth. Are those two, because I don't think those two are necessarily the same thing, but I know they do feed into each other. So what would you say to that?
Oh, it's interesting. So I've never done sales in my life. The way I myself perceive sales to be is that you have some type of service and you're actively pitching that service to another human. So I do believe that sales has a very human component where you have a social or a physical contract with another individual, at least in my perspective. But whereas growth, our objective is very much light touch, very much the big volumes where you do it at scale. And you do it at speed. So it's very rare that you do get that personal contact that you would with sales, where you're discussing. So be it if you're in a counter at a shop and you're selling a product, the attention that you give your customers at a completely different level than if you just have a digital ad and the person's converting, or you're just sending them that right promotion at the right time. So I have an immense respect for sales people, because I don't think I could do that job. It's much harder because you really have to, you're really put into the fire and you have to prove yourself to the user.
Yeah, so if I understood correctly, that means that it sounds like customer growth, you're kind of the back end, and sales would be kind of the front end. You optimize all the processes and all the marketing and so on. And then me as the sales rep, is my job to take those tools and to go out and actually start selling. Would that be right?
Exactly. Completely right. So for example, at 23 Video, which was the SaaS platform I worked with, the way we would work is growth and marketing. We would create the whole pipeline. We would get in the users, get in the leads. We would build a full ecosystem. We would bring the honey, and then they had to go and get the bear. So we would build the honey pots, and we would even say how many times this user has looked at this product demo, how many times have they checked on the website. And then it would be up to the sales rep to go and say, Mr. and so, I've seen your interest. By the way, we have this very specific niche that caters to your business. It was their job to close, which is extremely hard in B2B.
Yeah.
So yes, funny. I had the easy job. They had the hard stuff.
I don't know about that, because my background is in sales. So I would be the guy calling people up and trying to close the deals and so on. But I realized I think, like you said, sales is a human touch, but the marketing department has such a big influence on how successful we're going to be, because we need the understanding of the customers. We need the content. We need to, like you said, so when you were saying this client viewed this video 3 times, 4 times, yeah, that's what I would be looking at. And then, okay, hi sir, how are you? I think we could work together. So I just give me flashbacks from those days. But on that point, so I know, especially now with digital marketing, like you said, there's a science behind it, and a lot of it is data-driven and analytics-driven. So how important, in your opinion, do you think data is nowadays to the success of an organization or a business?
Oh, it's intrinsic. If you don't know what your users are doing, you are flying blind, because your competitor is going to know. So it's, I would have said 10 years ago, you could do it without it, because nobody had it. But now it's almost like the risk of disinformation. So you as a player, you need to be extremely sharp, because your competitor is just as sharp. So if you're not looking at what are my customers doing, why are they doing this, where are my risks, what days don't they buy, why don't they buy, if you don't have these answers at the tip of your tongue, your competitor is going to have them. And in an ecosystem, regardless of industry, we are entering a playing field where everyone is more informed. There are more brands, there are more consumers. So how do you stand out? And sometimes you need to also remember, in this world of digital, you are not competing with your competitor only. You are competing with every single brand who wants the attention of the customer. And so your competitor is not the person in your same industry. Yes, they're your direct competitor, but you're competing for that share of time. It's that time attention that is incredibly valuable. So yes, you need it. If you don't, you're behind.
I think you made a very good point, that especially now that everything's in the digital space, that to remember that, yes, you have competitors in the field, but you're not just competing for that. And the whole world right now, with how the more technology is advancing, the more addicted we're becoming to our phones and to all these kind of things. Attention is that resource that everyone's trying to grab. But whether you're in that space or not in that space, if I can grab your time, I can grab your attention, there's a chance potentially you can become a customer in the future, or an advocate for whatever I'm trying to do. And on the point about data, like you said, I think you're 100% right that it is intrinsic. You need it nowadays. But I also think that having it is one thing, like collecting it, which is great because you need it. But I think the key lies in how are you using it and how are you understanding it. So is it enough to just have the data, or does it need to be a process or a strategy behind it? Okay, how are we going to take this and apply it to like the business goals and KPIs and so on?
You're 100% on the money. You can have all the data in the world, but if you don't know what you do, you'll end up with analysis paralysis. And yeah, it's true. And I've seen it happen a lot. So my recommendation is, think, what is your most important number? What is the one thing you're trying to impact? Is it revenue? Is it volume of sales? Is it just time spent if you're a content producer? So my advice is, what is that one number that rules them all? And this is what we call your North Star metric. So you pick one number that is your most important number that you're going to focus on driving forward. And so, for example, for a company like Kareem in the early days, it would have been trips. How many trips are we doing? And everything was decomposed around trips. Of course, now the business is much more complex with the super app, which everyone's, of course, very familiar with. For us at Umore is how many, for our mental health platform, how many check-ins do we have? So how many times are users checking in? So you want to identify that one number that rules them all. And through that number, you reverse engineer the mathematics to get more of that number. So for example, for something like, so for your daily check-in, okay, great. They're not when they check in, why are they checking in? Why are they not checking in? Fantastic. How long are they staying? Did they do it after a push notification, or did they do it organically? And then you start figuring out what are the contributing factors to that one number, because that will tell you what you need to do to fix that number.
Yeah.
Or improve it, not fix it.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's such a good point that I've never considered before, is because I would always assume that the most important number for any business, I think, is, that the bottom line, that revenue, that cash in the pocket at the end of the day. But I think, like you said, I think that obviously is the end goal, but there's different North Stars you can have at different stages. So for example, with Umore, you guys, for example, have the check-ins. So that could be, a North Star, for example, could be engagement, or maybe time spent on the app. How do we keep users on the app? So I think it's a very good point that can change over time. So when it comes to setting like that North Star, is it just going to be based, in your experience, on what does the business need right now, or is it more of a long-term play?
So I think North Stars you should set them. It depends how quickly you're moving as a company. So how stable is your product? If your product is evolving constantly, your North Star is going to change with that product. So in the infancy of the company, yes, you're going to be looking for frequency numbers, engagement numbers. As you become more mature, eventually revenue will be a number. But I don't like looking at revenue in itself, or even, of course, you need profitability, but that is a number that doesn't tell you much about your business. So why are you increasing revenue? Can you find something that describes what drives your revenue? So for example, if you're selling toys, your revenue is driven by the number of toys you sell. So isn't that a better descriptor? How many toys am I selling, or am I just selling more expensive toys? Because if you're selling more expensive toys, your revenue will go up, but you're not necessarily selling more toys. So is your business better or worse? So I would challenge, find the thing that's at the right stage for you. It should be somewhat permanent, like I would say a year, maybe. It depends how mature your business is, or if you're in an evolving state. So for us at Umore, we're not revenue focused right now, not at all. We're completely growth focused. So that wouldn't be something we would be looking at right now.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point, that it all depends on what stage are you at in the company, what are you trying, and I think you made a very good point about the revenue, because I think a lot of people would think, oh, my sales are increasing, we're generating more revenue, that's great, but without taking a look at why that's happening, you don't understand exactly what's going on and how can we, push that further in the future. I wanted to come back onto,
because you could have just increased your prices.
There you go. Exactly. Nothing could have changed, but you might have increased the price. I wanted to come back to something you said earlier, which I thought was interesting, which is, with digital marketing and your experience with growth, how you create something and then you use the data behind it to repackage it, to deliver it to your consumers in a much more effective way. I'm curious, I feel sometimes if you're too data driven, that can hinder potentially the creativity of the stuff you're trying to make. What would you say to that? Or do you think, is there a balance that you kind of need to find?
So this way we start really going into, is your brand functional or is your brand aspirational? So nowadays, when you look at Apple, they have a very aspirational brand. So Apple doesn't tell you, we build great computers with amazing processing power. You'll never hear them say that. They will tell you, we build computers that change the world. Because Apple is already at a stage in their brand ecosystem where they can have the luxury to be extremely aspirational, where their users follow the brand because of what the brand stands for, much more than what is the CPU or the camera pixel quality. It is because of how you identify with them. I would argue for earlier stage products, you don't know what your brand is. You don't know what you are yet. So you need to experiment. And so the challenge I have with creativity is essential for innovation, but you have to do it a lot of times. So constant, and this is where the data comes in. So you need to experiment a lot. You don't know what's going to work until you don't know what you don't know. So a creative opinion is very subjective and it's a one-off. So you need to do 100 of those to find which one resonates. So yes, you do need creativity, but you need the data to figure out if that works. Of course, once you're an established brand with a base and you know what your users want and why they follow you, you can have a very aspirational, high-touch ecosystem. But at the beginning, you need to be, very, very focused, very functional, and because you still don't know that why. You still don't know that secret sauce that people love about you. And it's going to take time to figure that out.
Yeah, no, for sure. And that's such a good point, that the data it fuels the creativity in a way, because like you said, you need to keep trying things and experimenting, and you only know what's going to work when you take a look at the data. It's like, oh, are we going in the right direction? Okay, cool, we continue doing this. If not, we're going to have to change some things up. So now I understand how the two kind of play together. They don't hinder each other. They kind of complement each other, if anything. And working I was curious to hear from you, because you've worked in so many different industries and with growth and so on. So what is it about, I guess, this vertical that you've developed an expertise in that you enjoy the most?
I like the speed of it. We do things so fast.
Okay.
I love the speed of it. I could easily, I'll give you an example. For Humor, I just ran a campaign with 950 different ad permutations to find what you just, you build it with some variable builders. It's just to like test that one message and find what people really, really, really love. It's lots of speed, real impact in real time. So anything you do, you can do it very, very, very quickly. So I think you've noticed I have a lot of energy. if that doesn't come across. So I really see myself in the work that I do. And so because I'm naturally a very high energy person, I like things that move very quickly. So I think that's what always attracted me to growth, and why I didn't like, well, I loved brand marketing, don't get me wrong, but when you do brand marketing, you're doing campaigns that you do them once or twice a year. That's it. It's very, very long. And I like being there with the customer, getting that feedback, understanding what they want, why they want it, what they love, what they hate. So I love talking to people, and I think growth gives me that opportunity. So it's the speed of it. I love it. Speed and impact.
For sure. And I think that makes a lot of sense, especially with, like you were saying, the speed of it also gives you, because it's speed and you're constantly talking to different people and trying so many different things, you get that, like you correctly said, that real-time validation. So you know very quickly what's going to work, what's not going to work. Obviously, over time, you get a much broader picture, but it gives you the flexibility, and that's where I guess the excitement and the energy comes from. It's like, okay, we're going to try this now. Oh no, okay, let's go back to trying something else. So no, I totally understand. I wanted to take just a small tangent from our conversation, because this is something interesting, because I recently got involved or interested in the crypto space and the crypto markets and investing in cryptocurrency, and my daily life is now just staring at charts and graphs. And I saw that back in 2019, you actually had a company for a year, Valiant, which was using Ethereum smart contracts and on the blockchain. So I've spoken to people who have invested in crypto. I haven't spoken to anyone who's actually built something on like Ethereum and on the blockchain. So I'm just curious, how was that experience? What are your thoughts on blockchain and the future of that?
So this was at the iLab when I was working there. Our CEO had a policy, which was really interesting. He was like, I will create the best environment for tech people to come and work with us. And a part of the environment was you were allowed to spend some of your individual time working on your own startup. So you could stop working at 5 o'clock to work on your own thing. So together with some of my colleagues at the lab, at the then head of mobile, he's now heading up Apple Maps development for Europe. He's incredible. He was my CTO. We were really interested in smart contracts. So smart contracts have a functionality which was super cool because they were codable, and the technology behind Ethereum was really, really awesome. We just really liked how the technology was working. And so what we were doing was we were building state channels, which is, this gets a little bit technical, but basically one of the most challenging factors of Ethereum is gas. Transaction fees. For the people who don't understand, when you process cryptocurrencies, there's a fee that you pay associated to that transaction for the listeners. And on Ethereum, the gas fees were quite high. So what we would do is through state channels, you could lock in two users. So say you and I, we trust each other, we will lock in, and then we could transact bidirectionally, continuously, without paying gas. Once we were happy with our values, we would then take it on the chain and clear it. So we were playing around, we overcomplicated it. We wanted to build an options trading platform. We made the rookie mistake as founders, where we overcomplicated something that was actually quite simple. We should have just done micropayments. We should have just really simplified it. We should have just done micropayments between two trusted parties. But it was really fun. I was very much into the community. We were part of the Boston Blockchain Week. Went up to MIT. We got to work with some awesome people. So it was a project where we had a lot of fun, but we were, of course, inexperienced founders, and we learned a lot, and we made a couple of pitfalls. So it's a very long story on all the things that went wrong, and with hindsight, they were very fixable. And now, second time around, doing my second startup, I'm trying very hard not to make the same mistakes, because it is you do get yourself as founders. There's infinite opportunities, but you need to hyper focus. So simplicity is king. Product roadmap is king. But no, I really enjoyed it. We were doing some very cool stuff. I can still have our white papers somewhere.
No way, that's awesome. That's so interesting that you're in that space, because I've just recently learned about it. So even listening to your story and from the news I read, I'm only now starting to understand. Like asked me a few weeks ago what a smart contract is, I'd be like, I have no idea. I've never even heard of something like that before. But it's really cool that you had that experience. And I guess the best thing is we're starting any business, like we were saying earlier, it's going to take two things. I think time, and you're going to make mistakes. That's inevitable. So it's awesome that there's a lot of learnings you took from that, like simplicity, like having a very clear roadmap that now are coming into you more. So let's move on to you more in that case, because I want to hear from your side. So how did you get into humor? How did this all start? How did you and Alejandro even meet? I don't know what that story is.
So humor came about. So humor, Alejandro and I actually met at Techstars last year, and our goal at the time. So together with some friends, I joined an NHS hackathon for Techstars. So for those of you who don't know, the NHS is the National Health Service in the United Kingdom. And our goal was, we feel that during COVID, we're not doing much. And the only way we can give back is how we know, and that's through digital products. So we got together, and Alejandro and I met there, and we started conceptualizing humor. It's almost a year today. Yeah, we're getting April 2020. And we were just like, okay, where do we see that we believe that we can make a big impact? And I do think mental health, even though people are like, oh, it's so crowded, it's actually not crowded. There are still very few tools to offer accessible and affordable mental health care. Very few. That you have a lot of meditation apps, you have a lot of telemedicine apps, but affordable tools for you to self-manage, very, very few. So we saw an opportunity, and so we won the Techstars hackathon, and we started working it on weekends. We did it as a way to give back in this time of chaos. And then it turned out that we actually had a business, and we were like, wait a second, this is becoming quite good. So I quit Kareem to go. By the way, first mistake in our previous startup, we did not quit our jobs. And this is one learning that I'll never do again. You cannot do a startup part-time. You need to commit 110%, because it is extremely, that was number one mistake. We didn't quit our jobs. If you believe in what you're doing, you believe in so much that you're going to ask people to give you money, you should be, risking everything. There's a very famous saying that is, as a founder, you need to jump off a plane without a parachute and build a plane on the way down. And so that was mistake number one. So now all our founders are going full time. So I was the first one. Because if you need to believe in it yourself. And so how can you convince others if you're not going, full committed? It's the story of the bacon and the eggs. The bacon's committed to the breakfast. The eggs are not. Which that's not a good sentence in the Middle East, because bacon is not eaten, but
the turkey bacon.
You get the
yeah, for sure.
Turkey, exactly. The turkey bacon is committed. There you go. And so we came together. So we're four founders. We've got Joe, Carl, and Alejandro. They are brilliant individuals, and I cannot stress how much founding a company with a mission and a vision will drive you through the hard times. And this was the other thing that we didn't have in our first company. So when I did Valiat for the first time, we were doing it because we enjoyed the tech. We thought it was really cool. We really thought smart contracts were super cool, and there was so much to be done with them. And there is. I think Ethereum is game changing. I really do believe in the technology. What Vitalik did was pure genius. But we didn't have that mission. We were just enjoying ourselves, having fun in a very fast-moving and exciting space in the, well, not even early days. It was already quite mature as an industry. But with Valiant, we came together with a very strong mission, because our mission was, we want to make mental health care affordable and accessible to all, regardless of income and location. And we're doing this because our goal as founders is we want to measure the mind. So that really, really helped. So we started working on it. And then in December, October, we launched our alpha, December, our beta, and yeah, over 2,500 users. So now in the UAE, I don't know if I've already said this, but yeah, in the UAE, we're number 80 on the App Store, which is pretty cool. And yeah, I know, free apps, right? It's insane. And we're only on Android. We haven't even launched on iOS. We didn't even expect that. And in the UK, we're number 4 for stress tracking. So that was pretty insane as well. I know, right? Top 10. So, and our product is still very thin. It's still a very baby version of what we want it to be. So we know that this space is super interesting, and we know that there is a lot that's going to happen. And I'm very privileged to have awesome co-founders. Yeah. But another recommendation. Well, the first time I also did it with awesome co-founders that are really, when you do a company with your founders, do it for the mission. Clear mission, clear vision. Even if your mission is that you want to be a billionaire, that's also fine. That's actually also okay if that's your mission, but make sure that you're hyper aligned on that.
I think so many points to talk about. I want to start first of all with something you said, which I think, so this is something that I think about a lot. And when I speak to people, everyone said, like, so when you said to do a startup, one of the biggest mistakes you learned from Valiant is that you have to be 100% committed to it. And I love what you said, that because if you don't believe in the product, how can I expect someone else to pay me for this product or for this service? And that's something I really respect. But what's interesting is that you started it on the side, and then you went into it as you saw things pick up. So what advice do you have? Because sometimes people are like, oh, I really want to start this business, but either, let's say you have a family, you have, bills, it's obviously there's a big risk that you have to take. It's not, it's not something you do on a whim. So looking back now, would you advise people to build it slowly on the side? If you can't dive into it fully, build it slowly on the side, and then when it reaches a certain point, dive in? Or what would you say to that? Because I think that is something that a lot of people who want to start their own business and want to become entrepreneurs face, because to say, yeah, follow your passion, all that is great. And I do believe in that, but I think there also needs to be a bit of reality in what
this is. And quitting your job and not having income is extremely difficult for anyone. So you have to plan around it. So I quit first, and then my co-founders quit later. So we made a strategic plan. So my recommendation is set a date and figure out, like, how much money do I need to get me there? So after that date, when am I going to start fundraising? Do I have enough capital to get me there? Who's going to go full time? So you have to plan this. Don't just like, okay, don't just really think about how, if money is an issue, which for most people it is. So you can save a little bit. I'm very lucky. I have my husband who's very supportive. So I'm very privileged to be married to an individual who believes in my crazy ambitions. And having a support system around you is also really, really important, because there will be days where it is very difficult, where you struggle and you question yourself and you ask, like, oh, why did I do this? But those days are short if you have the right people around you. So yes, plan for it, make it strategic, but just set a date, commit to yourself. Do a social contract with yourself and with your team of where you guys want to go. One of the best advice I actually got from an investor, he's an American investor from Seattle. He was like, ask yourself, what is the next stage you want to be at? And then reverse engineer the place you're going to get, how you're going to get there. And I was like, oh my gosh, I love that. He was like, yeah, go do that pitch deck for your next raise. Go do the pitch deck for the one after that. And then reverse engineer, okay, if I want to get there, how do I do it? Instead of thinking in a sequence, reverse engineer the math. So ask yourself, okay, where do I want to be in a year? And what do I need to do to get there?
I think that's amazing advice. I really like that. I've never heard of that before, because it makes so much.
Yeah, I loved it. Yeah.
It just makes so much sense when you look at it like that. It's a lot more structured. It's a lot more, you see where I'm trying to go and you try to reverse it. And I think that's something that a lot of people, that's what a lot of us struggle with, is knowing where I want to go is one thing. Like, I know where I want to be, for example, in 5 years, but if I don't have a plan to get there, there's so many moving parts that I need to do to get there that you become overwhelmed. And I think that can stop people and affect their motivation and so on. And like you correctly said, having a support system around you is so important. Like, I can speak from my own experience. Like, I've had days that I'm like, I've had the questions like, what am I doing? Is this the right thing to do? I don't know. But having people around you who actually believe in you and support you really is so important, so crucial. And coming back to you more, so I remember one of the first conversations we had, we were talking about how you were talking about you more and the vision behind it, and to making it accessible to mental health, accessible to as many people as possible. And I remember I was saying that with certain things, you probably need, a therapist or so on, but you made a very good point that not everyone has the resources, financial resources to pay for a therapist. So how do we start helping them without doing that? So I think that's where you guys fit in is so important, because if you don't need a therapist, great. Umore can help you just manage your daily stress levels, give you more awareness about yourself, which is great. And if you do, you now have a much better understanding of yourself and why you need that therapist. And is it a situation that deserves or needs that extra bit of help? So like you said, it's a very nice niche that you guys have found. And you're right, it's not a crowded space yet. People talk about mental health a lot, but I don't think there's many companies in the world, at least not from my knowledge, that are directly focused on mental health and helping people better. Like you said, there's a lot of meditation apps, but there's not many that are doing the kind of work that you guys are doing. And also, one thing you said which really surprised me was when you're talking through, like, okay, this is what you do, you download the app and then you have to fill in the questionnaire, and then you then you have access to the app. And so I did that. I actually downloaded the app, and I spoke about it with Alejandro briefly, and I remember I was telling you the questionnaire, like, I don't know if that's going to be like, will put people off joining, but it's so simple. It's very simple. It's very easy. It didn't give me any, I didn't feel any much resistance from it. And it's a very intuitive platform. And your conversion, I remember you telling me the number of people that convert was incredible. So, and to see it grow.
We've got, yeah.
Please go ahead, please.
Our numbers are, no, you're completely right. Yeah, we've got, and our onboarding takes like 3 minutes, and we've got over 80% conversion. It's insane. Very few apps I've worked with, I've had these numbers with. And that just signals to the problem, right? That you people want help. And you're completely right. Anything severe, and this I need to be very clear, anything severe has to always be dealt with a professional.
Yeah.
So we are only supporting mild to moderate situations. But we don't want people to get to a severe state. If you can, catch it before it becomes a problem, you won't get to a severe state. If you catch burnout, if you, take care of yourself, you will not have chronic anxiety, because it's all progressive. You start with chronic stress, will lead to anxiety. Chronic anxiety will lead to a depression. It is an escalation. And so our goal is just like, let's help people, face these demons before they become demons. Just nip it in the bud.
Exactly. Alejandro was talking about how because I asked him, is there a lack of preventative care, or is there a lack of, what's the other, reactive care, in the world, which would be like a therapist and so on. And I think what you guys are doing is so important, because it is that preventative side. If you catch it at the right time, if, Umore comes into your life at the right time, it can prevent you from getting to that stage of needing to go to that therapist, or whatever the case might be. So I think it's a very important thing that you guys are doing, and I love the vision behind it. And I've used the platform myself, and it is fantastic. I get the check-ins every once in a while, just how am I doing today? I'm like, okay, I'm not too stressed, I'm pretty happy. Life's looking good. So I'm curious, so you said you learned a lot from your last experience trying to run with Valiant, and how that's played into you more. But and you said something about being hyper aligned with your co-founders on the vision. Why is that so crucial if you want the company to really take off and be successful?
Because because we are essentially trying. When you run a startup, there will be a long time where you're operating on fumes. You won't have money. You won't have capital. There will be days that are good and days that are bad, but you won't have. Not all days are going to be good. So you need to remember why you're doing that. Why are you helping people? And if you have a mission, which you all stand behind it, you'll remind yourself, no, this is not for me. This is for something bigger. This is why. It's that why. And it will drive you so deeply that you will forget the problems that you have, and you'll get back and focus. There's some great, there's this golden circle principle by Simon Sinek. He does a TED talk. For anyone who hasn't seen it, I thoroughly recommend it. And you need to know your why. And if your why is strong, you will succeed. So value alignment. I recommend all founders should do a founder exercise where they write down, I have my team do this. Every founder should do it. Write down, what are you trying to achieve? And it is perfectly okay to say, I want to be a billionaire. That is not, do not feel guilty, but make sure that that's also the goal of your founders. So make sure that you're all there to do the same thing. You might, so at the iLab, our goal was to improve the lives of people living with chronic skin conditions. And our founders were very, very founder on that goal. So every single number we would look at, how many lives did we improve? How many patients? How many people? What was that volume? So founder alignment will get you through the hard times, but it will also get you through the good times. So it's a survival instinct that if you don't have, it'll be very tough. Because I mean, like only 5% of startups make it.
Yeah, and that's pretty crazy that's the statistic. But I think you made a very good point about the why. And I think this doesn't just apply to a startup. I think coming back to your why applies to your life even personally. What is the impact, like with the startup, what is the impact that we want to make with this startup? When it comes to you, what is the impact? What is my purpose? What do I want to have in this world? Because like you said, there are going to be tough times. It's not all rainbows and butterflies in life. That's just not how it is. So coming back to that why will help you get through those tough times and the hard days, and keep you going, keep you moving forward. So I think that's great advice. And yeah, guys, Simon Sinek is fantastic. So if you haven't listened to that talk, definitely check it out. Maria,
it's what I make my team watch it once in a while, and I make all the interns also watch it. It's super critical.
Yeah, 100%. He's fantastic. He really is. Like his talk, some of the talks that he's had, I just sit back and I'm just like wow, my brain has just been like exploded. Like I never thought of things in this way, or like looked at things from that perspective. So I totally understand where you're coming from. Maria, for my last two questions, these are questions I ask all my guests. Number one is looking back over your career and everything you've accomplished, or maybe even in your personal life, what would you say you're most proud of for yourself?
I don't know. That I'm here today.
That you're here today?
Yeah, because every step we take gets us further. There are things that we accomplish that are cool and amazing, and you get awards, but it's a journey. So I'm most proud for actively being on that journey. So every step you make, it's about the small things, because if I say like, oh, I won this award for this, which I did, but that was a one-off, but it was just a part of the journey. So I'm most proud for having the courage to do the journey.
Yeah, I think that's beautiful, and I think so many people can resonate with that, because like you said, that award or that one moment is great and it is cool, but it's like every decision that you took to get to where you are today. You know, I think that's what people can resonate with a lot, and that's awesome that that's how you feel. And for my last question, Maria, what is the message you'd like everyone to take home with them today?
That mental health is not a privilege, it's a right, because everyone deserves the right to a healthy mind.
I could not have said it any better myself. I think that's a beautiful message, and as you know, I'm a big supporter of what you guys do and of mental health in general, so I love that. Maria, I wanted to say thank you so much for coming on the show today. Since our first conversation, I'm like, I have to have you on the show. I'm sure it'd be a fantastic conversation. And it was, as I expected. I really learned so much from you about, growth and how to think about, marketing and how you combine the two, and mental health, and just so many different points about startups and founders, and coming back to why that we touched on today. So I've learned a lot from our conversation. So thank you. And I think a lot of people can take something from this.
Oh, I loved it. I can talk about this for hours. I think we are kindred spirits, and when you share a passion for and the same beliefs in helping people, so I think it's easy to talk. So thank you so much for having me here, and it's such a privilege to talk to you today as well. Because yeah, I really enjoyed it too.
Awesome. I'm so glad. Guys, to everyone listening, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And as always, hope it helps. Peace. And we are done.